A dog sensed something even an FBI agent missed. The sky was overcast as Agent Mia Reed drove the unmarked black SUV down a winding rural road lined with tall pines. The clouds hung heavy above, casting a muted gray over the world. Her fingers tapped rhythmically on the steering wheel as she glanced over at the passenger seat, where Dex, her retired canine partner, rested with his head on his paws. His ears twitched occasionally, alert despite his calm posture. Dex had been by her side for nearly a decade, through raids, crime scenes, and countless late-night interrogations. Now, retired, he was supposed to be enjoying quiet days at home, but she couldn't leave him behind. Not for this case. A worn manila folder sat on the dash, the label partially smudged by coffee stains and time. Tara Lang. Missing, presumed deceased. 6 months ago, the 16-year-old girl had vanished from her small-town home. No signs of forced entry, no ransom notes, no final text messages. The community had rallied. Volunteers combed the woods. The local sheriff had suspected Braden Toll, a man with a juvenile record and a bad temper, but with no physical evidence or witness testimony, the case had gone cold. The FBI marked it as another unresolved disappearance. Until Mia was asked to give it one final review before closing it for good. She pulled into the cracked driveway of the Lang family's modest home. The wooden siding was chipped, and the garden beds were filled with weeds. A faded banner that once read, "Come home, Tara," hung limply over the porch. The ink bleached from too much sun and too many storms. Mia climbed the steps and knocked. The door opened slowly. Karen Lang looked older than her age. Her eyes were sunken, dark crescents beneath them. Her hands trembled slightly on the doorknob. "Agent Reed?" she asked. "Yes," Mia replied gently. "Just here to finalize the case review." Karen gave a slight nod and stepped aside, motioning Mia in. Dex followed, silently, his paws padding softly across the hardwood floor. Inside, the house was quiet. A stale sort of quiet, like the air hadn't moved in days. Framed photos lined the walls. Tara as a baby, Tara in a school play, Tara blowing out birthday candles. There was one from her 16th birthday, the last known image of her before she vanished. The girl had braces and a wild mess of curls, a pink hoodie that read "Live Loud." Karen sat on the couch, hands clenched around a mug. "I told them all," she said. Tara wouldn't run away. She wasn't that kind of girl. Mia took a seat across from her and opened the file. "I believe you," she said. "I'm just here to double-check the documentation and see if anything was missed. It won't take long." Dex sniffed around the room without a sound, moving slowly past the photos, the coat rack, the front door. His nose twitched with interest when he reached the hallway. Karen motioned weakly toward the back of the house. "Her room's the same. I couldn't bring myself to pack it up." Mia stood. "Do you mind if I take a look?" Karen nodded silently. Down the hallway, Dex reached the bedroom door before Mia did. He stood stiffly, staring at the crack beneath it, his body tense. Mia opened the door slowly. Tara's room was frozen in time. Posters of bands and movie stars still lined the walls. A backpack sat untouched on the desk. A water bottle half sup. A planner with little doodles in the margins. The bed was made sloppily, how most teenagers left it in the morning. Dex entered and immediately moved toward the closet. Mia watched as he sniffed along the carpet, then stopped suddenly. He let out a low, restrained growl. "Dex?" she asked. He scratched once at the floorboard beside the closet door. Mia kneeled. The wood there was slightly darker than the rest. She ran her fingers over it. Uneven, almost as if something had once been nailed down. She made a mental note and stood. She continued to scan the room, jotting down small things in her notebook. A pair of shoes under the bed, an old phone charger, a framed photo of Tara with another girl. Possibly a friend. She'd dig into that later. When she rejoined Karen in the living room, Dex stayed close by her side, his tail low and unmoving. "She liked music," Karen said suddenly. "She'd blast it on Saturday mornings while cleaning her room. Drove me crazy." Mia offered a small smile. Do you remember the last thing she said to you? Karen blinked, as if pulling the memory from the depths of her mind. She said, "Don't forget to pick up the cupcakes." It was for her friend's birthday. That was the morning she disappeared. Mia nodded. Was she acting differently that week? Anything unusual? No, Karen said, her voice cracking. Everything was normal. Too normal. Dex gave a short bark, not loud but sharp. Mia's head turned instantly. Karen jumped. Is he okay? He's trained to alert when he senses something off, Mia said carefully. But there's nothing here, Karen said. Mia didn't answer. Her mind was spinning. Dex had reacted twice now, and not mildly. First in the bedroom, now here. Was it possible something had been overlooked? She thanked Karen and promised to follow up. As she stepped outside, Dex resisted slightly, pulling her back toward the porch, as if wanting to stay. She crouched next to him. What is it, boy? His ears were perked forward, gaze fixed on something invisible. Mia had seen this posture dozens of times. At crime scenes, drug raids, even on body recovery calls. Dex had always been right. Always. That night, Mia sat in her motel room, the folder open in front of her, post-it notes stuck everywhere. She reviewed the sheriff's reports. Toll had been questioned and released. His cabin had been searched, but not thoroughly. The cadaver dogs had found nothing, but Dex wasn't a cadaver dog anymore. He was older, slower. Yet today, he hadn't acted like an old dog. He had acted like a dog on a mission. Mia stared at the ceiling. A nagging sensation took root in her gut. Something was wrong with this case, very wrong. And she was starting to believe that Tara Lang might not be dead at all. And if Dex was right, the clock was still ticking. Rain pelted the windshield as Mia guided the SUV through narrow country roads, headlights bouncing off puddles and slick gravel. Dex sat upright in the passenger seat, more alert than she'd seen him in months. His nose twitches constantly, catching scents that Mia couldn't detect but trusted implicitly. She tapped the steering wheel with one hand, her mind looping through the timeline again. If Tara had left on her own, she would have left a trail. Social media, bus tickets, sightings, but there was nothing. Not even the usual digital ghost a teenager would leave behind. It was as if someone had wiped her away. She pulled into a small parking area near the woods, half a mile from where Braden Toll's cabin had once been searched. The sheriff's file claimed the place was empty, checked top to bottom, but Mia knew the tone of those notes. They'd rushed it. Probable cause had been weak, pressure from the media was mounting, and with no cadaver dog hit at the time, the search was half-hearted. She grabbed her flashlight and motioned for Dex to follow. The trees loomed over them like silent guards, branches dripping water in rhythmic plops into the forest floor. The trail was barely visible, covered in wet leaves and undergrowth, but Dex moved forward without hesitation, pausing only when he caught a whiff of something unusual. The cabin emerged like a ghost from the trees, weathered wood, sagging porch, a door with chipped paint. No lights, no signs of life. Mia approached cautiously, weapon holstered but ready. She knocked once, twice, nothing. She tried the handle, locked. Dex scratched lightly at the base of the door. She circled around back. The rear entrance had a rusted latch, easy to pry open. Inside, the place smelled of damp wood and decay. Shelves were lined with old tools, boxes of canned food, and a kerosene heater that looked like it hadn't been used in months. She moved slowly, flashlight scanning every corner. Dex growled low. Not a bark, just enough to make her freeze. He was at a trapdoor in the floor, half covered by a filthy rug. Mia knelt and pulled the rug back. A handle. She opened it slowly. A set of creaking wooden stairs descended into darkness. The air that rose from below was cold, stale, tinged with something faintly metallic. "Stay," she whispered to Dex. But he ignored her and began down the steps ahead of her, careful and quiet. The basement was small, barely larger than a storage cellar. Shelves lined the walls, stocked with old supplies, blankets, and ropes. But what caught her attention was the far wall, a section that looked newer than the rest. The wood was clean. Different? She moved closer, knocking gently. Hollow. She ran her fingers along the edge until she found it. A seam. A panel. She pressed. It clicked slightly and swung open, revealing a narrow crawl space no more than 3 feet wide. Dex growled again. She shone her flashlight inside. There was something there. A mattress. A bowl. Scratch marks on the walls. Mia's breath caught in her throat. Whoever had stayed here, or been kept here, had been down here a long time. She backed out quickly, heart pounding. The space was empty now, but the clues were fresh enough to suggest recent use. Someone had gone to lengths to hide this room. Someone who didn't want Tara to be found. Back at the SUV, Mia called the sheriff's office and requested a full forensic team. She kept the report vague, just enough to get the gears turning, not enough to risk someone tipping off the wrong person. If someone from inside the system had been helping Braden, she couldn't afford to make noise yet. That night, back at her motel, she pulled up Toll's background again. Juvenile offenses, center failure, surreptitious, scorch marks, vandalism, underage drinking, but nothing violent. His last known employment was at a hardware store. He had a younger sister, 4 years younger than Tara. She'd gone to the same school. She picked up the phone and called the high school. The secretary was hesitant, but eventually shared that Eliza had dropped out a year ago. Family issues, she said vaguely. Mia felt a chill settle over her. If Braden had taken Tara, and if his sister had known her or been jealous or angry, could they have worked together, held her somewhere? She needed someone who had known Tara well, someone outside the family. She found the girl from the photo in Tara's room, Jessie Alvarez, now attending a nearby community college. Jessie agreed to meet the next morning at a diner on Main Street. When Mia arrived, Jessie was already there, nervously sipping iced tea. Her fingers fidgeted with the straw wrapper. "I didn't think anyone still cared," Jessie said softly. "I care," Mia replied. "You were close to Tara?" "She was my best friend. I knew everything about her." "Or, I thought I did. Did she ever mention Braden Toll?" Jessie's brow furrowed. "That creep?" "Yeah, he used to hang out behind the school, always smoking. Tried to talk to Tara once, but she blew him off." "Anyone else? Someone who might have held a grudge?" Jessie hesitated. "There was this substitute teacher once. He only lasted a week. Mr. Claiborne. He gave me the creeps, but Tara, she said he asked her to stay after class once." Mia scribbled the name down. It hadn't been in the file. "Did she say why?" "No. She just said he was weird and made her uncomfortable. But nothing happened. At least, I don't think so." That night, Mia couldn't sleep. Her thoughts were spiraling now. What if Braden hadn't acted alone? What if Tara hadn't just been hidden, but moved? She stared at Dex, curled at the foot of the bed, breathing steady. Her instincts screamed that something was unraveling. Not just a missing person case. Something darker. Someone had gone to extreme lengths to bury this secret. And if she was right, if Tara was still alive, she was running out of time to find her.
Morning crept in through the faded motel blinds, casting pale shadows across the room. Mia sat at the edge of the bed, her fingers wrapped around a lukewarm cup of coffee. The night had offered little sleep, her mind replaying the evidence, the crawl space, Jessie's words. Something didn't sit right about the substitute teacher, Mr. Claiborne. He hadn't come up in any reports, no mentions, not in interviews, not in staff records. It was as if he'd never existed. She powered up her laptop and began digging. The school's archived announcements didn't list a Claiborne, but a brief mention in a parent forum referenced a Mr. Clary, who filled in for the literature teacher during the fall semester, the same time Tara vanished. A comment beneath the post caught her eye. "Weird guy. Didn't last long. My daughter said he asked strange questions after class." Mia leaned closer, scanning the poster's name. Cheryl Madsen. She was local. Mia dialed the number linked to the profile. Cheryl answered after the second ring. "This is Cheryl." "Mrs. Madsen, I'm Agent Maya Brooks with the FBI. I'm looking into the disappearance of Tara Sutton. You mentioned someone named Mr. Ruff. Clary on a forum post a while back. Do you remember anything else about him?" There was a pause. He was odd. "My daughter said he never gave homework, just asked the kids to write about what scared them most. He had them turn it in, but they never got it back." "Do you remember his first name?" "No, sorry, but he drove an old white sedan, parked in the far end of the lot. I think he had an accent. Maybe British, maybe fake. Honestly, I got a bad feeling about him." That was enough. Mia opened a DMV inquiry, cross-checking staff parking permits with vehicle descriptions. After several dead ends, one name surfaced: Jonathan Clary. A rental agreement tied to a small apartment on the edge of town, vacated a week after Tara disappeared. No forwarding address, no emergency contact, no tax records after that date. But one utility, an old PO box, was still active. She drove straight to the post office, Dex riding quietly beside her. The clerk hesitated at first, but her badge cleared the way. The box hadn't been emptied in weeks. Inside were a few flyers, a cheap diner receipt, and a yellow envelope with no return address. She opened it carefully. Inside was a single photo, slightly bent, grainy. It showed a girl sitting on a floor in dim light, her hands bound in front, hair messy but eyes sharp, alive. A small stuffed bear sat beside her, the same one from Tara's childhood photos. On the back of the photo, written in tiny block letters, were 5 words: "She's not the only one." Mia stared at it, blood draining from her face. This wasn't just about Tara anymore. Back in her SUV, she called it in, an official escalation. The photo would be analyzed, scanned for metadata, background elements, anything. She didn't wait. Every instinct told her Tara was still somewhere close. She pulled out the map of the area, marked the cabin, the school, and now this post office, all within a 20-mile radius. She began drawing lines, circles, radiuses. A pattern emerged, not from what was there, but what wasn't. A stretch of private land owned by a shell company, purchased 5 years ago, untouched by utilities or development. On paper, it was listed for future agricultural use. But satellite images showed a small building near the tree line, hidden beneath heavy canopy. No roads led there, no trails marked. She packed her bag, loaded Dex into the back, and set off on foot through the wooded ridge. The hike was long, steep in places, branches clawing at her jacket, rain still misting the air. But Dex moved with purpose, his nose low, ears twitching. He paused once, sniffed the wind, then charged ahead. They broke through the trees just before dusk. The building was low and square, part shed, part bunker, metal door, no windows. A faint hum came from inside. She approached silently, no cameras, no motion lights. Dex whimpered once, then fell still. She crouched beside him, heart racing. She reached for the door and twisted the knob, locked. She stepped back and gave it one firm kick near the handle. The metal gave a groan, then popped open. The air that rushed out was heavy with mildew and something fouler, stale food, sweat, time. She entered, flashlight sweeping the interior. A cot, a bucket, empty food containers, a chain bolted to the wall. And, scattered across a small table, several Polaroids. Each one showed a different girl. One was Tara, another she didn't recognize, a third looked barely 12. Each photo had a date scrawled on the back. Her stomach turned. Dex moved to the far end, sniffed a small panel in the wall. Another hidden crawl space. She opened it, dark, narrow. No one inside. But someone had been here recently. The soup cans were only a day or 2 old. Heat lingered in the electric plate plugged into a wall outlet powered by a hidden generator. Whoever had used this place had either moved on or was coming back. She stepped outside, heart hammering, and called backup. This was now a federal crime scene. As she waited for support, Dex paced in a tight circle, ears pricked. A twig snapped behind her. She spun, weapon drawn. But there was no one. Just trees and silence. The forest swallowed sound. Mia stood still, breath held, eyes scanning the dense shadows between the trees. The crack of that twig hadn't been her imagination. Someone had been close, watching, maybe still was. She raised her weapon higher and turned slowly, listening for movement. Nothing, not even the wind. Behind her, Dex growled, a low, warning rumble. His nose pointed toward the edge of the trees where the light thinned out completely. She followed his gaze but saw nothing but underbrush and hanging limbs. She backed toward the shed, phone pressed to her ear again. "This is Agent Brooks. I need air and ground units at these coordinates. Immediate deployment. Suspect may still be on site." She gave them the location, her voice steady, but her muscles wound tight. The first backup wouldn't arrive for at least 20 minutes. That was enough time for someone to vanish into the woods, or worse. She moved fast, circling the shed. No footprints, but the dirt was packed, damp from the rain. Whoever had been watching knew the terrain, knew the shed had been found, and left without a trace. Inside, she reviewed the Polaroids again. Tara's photo had a date from 3 months ago. Another was dated just 2 weeks earlier. That girl had bruises on her arms, her face partially hidden. Mia snapped shots of each photo with her phone. She noticed something then. Behind the girl in the most recent image, a faint pattern on the wall. Faded, almost like vines or letters. She zoomed in. No, not vines. Wallpaper. A pattern of birds. She took out her phone and ran a search through the Bureau's visual database. After cross-referencing known interiors and forensic archives, a hit came back. Not a confirmed match, but a location flagged years ago in an unrelated case. An abandoned farmhouse on the outskirts of the next county. Seized by the bank, but never auctioned. Remote, unoccupied, and now possibly repurposed. By the time the tactical team arrived, Mia already had a new lead. "I need 3 agents to sweep this structure," she said, motioning to the shed. "Evidence, prints, DNA, everything. The rest, you're with me. We're going after whoever's still moving." They drove fast through back roads, Mia leading the convoy in her SUV. Dex sat alert in the passenger seat, eyes fixed on the road ahead like he understood the urgency. It took 40 minutes to reach the property. The house stood alone, set back behind a rusted fence and rows of brittle trees. The porch sagged. One shutter hung loose. But there were signs of life, faint tire tracks, a plastic water bottle tossed near the steps, and a thin stream of smoke rising from the chimney. She signaled the team. Approach silent. No lights. They fanned out, circling the house. Maya crept up the front steps, Dex behind her, paused silent on the rotting wood. She tested the door. Unlocked. She eased it open. The smell hit first. Rot, bleach, something metallic. Inside was a hallway, dim and narrow. The wallpaper from the photo was here, yellowed and peeling, birds fading from age. She swept the beam of her flashlight across the walls, scuff marks, drag lines. She moved forward, gun raised. A sound, faint, almost like a whimper, came from behind a closed door at the end of the hall. She signaled one of the agents to flank. Another took position at the rear door. Mia reached for the handle and turned it slowly. The door creaked open. Inside was a small room lit by a single overhead bulb. A girl sat on a mattress, hands bound but eyes wide and alive. Her clothes were dirty, hair matted, but she wasn't alone. Another girl, maybe 12, curled up behind her. They both flinched when Mia stepped inside. "It's okay," she said softly. "I'm FBI. You're safe now." Tears spilled down the older girl's cheeks. "He said he'd come back tonight." "Not if we find him first," Mia whispered. The agents moved in, cutting their restraints, offering blankets, water. The younger girl clung to Dex, who nuzzled her gently. Mia looked around the room. 2 sets of chains, food wrappers, a bucket. In the corner, a duffel bag packed with rope, gloves, duct tape, and a camera. The kind that printed instant photos. She opened the camera, 1 photo inside, blank, recently taken. Her stomach turned. There was a back door, slightly ajar. Whoever this man was, this Mr. Clary, or whatever name he used, he had been here recently, and he was still running. But now she had faces, names, voices, and more than that, she had survivors. She stepped out into the night, air sharp in her lungs. This was far from over. But for the first time since Tara's case began, she felt the scales tipping. 1 girl was safe, then 2, and she would not stop until the last one came home. The rain started just after midnight, soft at first, then turning steady, masking the sound of everything else. Mia stood in front of the old farmhouse, watching the forensic team load evidence into their vans. The girls were already being driven to a safe location, accompanied by agents trained in trauma care. Dex sat beside her, soaked but calm. His eyes followed every movement, as if still on alert. She couldn't stop thinking about the photo left in the camera, taken after the girls had already been kidnapped but not yet removed. It was as if the man wanted them to know he was still out there. still in control. But he was losing grip. The pattern was unraveling. She returned to the mobile command vehicle, set up down the road, and dropped the duffel bag with the camera on the table. The photo had dried by now. She stared at it again. Not blank, there was something faint in the upper right corner. Letters, a reflection? She ran it through image filters, adjusting exposure. There, a name painted on glass. Old Mill Creek. It clicked. A decommissioned textile factory north of the city. The site had been condemned years ago. No one was supposed to be there. But to a predator who needed isolation and space, it was perfect. She didn't wait for full approval. She called it in, gathered a tactical unit, and left before dawn. They arrived as the sky began to lighten, casting a blue-grey hue across the broken windows and collapsed rooftop. The place was huge, 3 floors of rusted machinery, conveyor belts, and forgotten storage. They moved in fast. Dex led the way again, nose twitching. Mia stayed close, gun raised. On the 2nd floor they found signs, fresh footprints, gear recently moved, a sleeping bag, cans of food, a lantern still warm. He had been here, possibly still was. Then they heard the sound, quick footsteps somewhere above them. The agents spread out. Mia took the stairs up alone. She reached the top and heard the footsteps again, faster this time, heavier, more panicked. Then she saw him. A tall man in a black hoodie, face partly covered. He looked right at her, then turned and bolted. She chased him, Dex barking behind her. They ran through rows of broken machines, rust flakes falling from the ceiling as their boots pounded the metal floor. He reached a catwalk and climbed it fast. Maya followed, heart hammering. She shouted, "Stop, FBI!" He turned, aimed a small object in her direction. Not a weapon, a flash device. He triggered it. Bright light flooded her vision. She staggered but didn't stop. Dex growled, launched forward. The man tried to run again, but Dex clamped onto his arm, dragging him down with a thud. Mia was on him a second later, cuffing him before he could struggle. It was him, no doubt. The scars matched, the voice, quiet but cold, matched what one of the girls had described. In his bag, they found IDs, keys, tools, and another Polaroid camera. He said nothing, even as they walked him to the waiting vehicle. At the Bureau's holding facility, Mia stood outside the interrogation room, watching him through the glass. He sat motionless, staring at nothing, as if already planning his next move, even though this was the end. She didn't go in. There was no need. The evidence would speak louder than his silence ever could. That evening, Mia returned to her apartment for the first time in days. Dex curled up near the fireplace, finally resting. She poured a glass of water and sat on the couch, still wearing the same clothes from the operation. On the table were the files, the photos, the maps, the girls' drawings. Lives almost lost, but saved in time. She picked up a drawing one of the girls had made, 2 stick figures and a dog standing under a sun. One was labeled Me, the other said Mia. The dog had pointy ears and a giant smile. She smiled too, for the first time in what felt like weeks. It wasn't just about catching the man. It was about returning what had been stolen, freedom, safety, hope. And if there was ever another case like this again, she would be ready.